On today's show, we feature the legendary Leon Mandrake.
Welcome to Magic Mike's Castle webcast and podcast. Leon Mandrake is the eldest son of Leon and Velvet Mandrake, one of the most famous teams in the history of magic. Leon is a trained scientist and a past president of the BC Science Teachers Association. He is an internationally known mentalist, magician, and president of the Society of American Magicians, Assembly 95, an assembly of top professional magicians. He is also the past regional vice president of the Society of American Magicians. As an educator, Leon has received several awards for excellence in science teaching, including the Outstanding Science Teacher Award from the Optical Society of North America and the BC Science Teachers Distinguished Service to Science Education Award. He was twice nominated for the Prime Minister's Award for Science Teaching in Canada. He is the co-founder and chairman of the BC Science Teachers Annual Conference, Catalyst. He's been recognized for outstanding performances in the field of magic and mind mystics. Leon and Linda Mandrake have performed at the Magic Castle in Hollywood, Science World in Vancouver, the New York Hall of Science, the Pacific Science Center in Seattle, as well as many large corporate shows and private functions.
Thank you so much for joining me on today's show. We have very special guest, Leon Mandrake, and I'm so pleased and excited that he's agreed to come and join us today. How are you, Leon?
Oh, I'm great, thank you.
You got your start very young. How old were you, Leon, when you were in your dad's show or assisting in a show?
Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I sort of became interested in magic. We used to travel with my father and my father's show all throughout North America and Canada, and so we would watch an awful lot of magic shows. And being a very curious child, at probably age 6 or 7, I might say, "Well, Dad, how did you cut Mom in half?" And the interesting thing is, he said, "Lon, I will not tell you how any of the magic is done, because magic is meant to build a curiosity and give you a sense of wonder. And like anything, once you know how it's done, you stop to think about it, you stop to wonder about it." And he said, "If you're willing to learn something, I'll teach it to you. But just to tell you an answer, it finishes your thought processes."
Yes.
And it's interesting because I took that on into science when I started teaching science. Rather than just explain things and give answers and people stop thinking, I would give a series of puzzles in science and the students would have to try to solve them. And it made it much more fun. My classes, I think, enjoyed it a lot more. And of course, I enjoyed it a lot more as well. And so it was a kind of a philosophy of not just exposing or talking about what you've learned, but to build up that curiosity. And I hope that I still have that kind of curiosity and sense of wonder even at this age and knowing the magic that I do. Actually, to get back to your question, though, is as a child, of course, I got jobs like running spotlights and sweeping the stage and looking after the animals. I mean, all the rabbits and doves were my domain. So I was involved that way. My younger brother actually became an assistant to my dad and was an assistant for a number of years and also did magical performances on his own. But I never really did any stage performances until I was an adult that had already been teaching for a number of years. But I was always, interested in it. But anything I got involved in at an early age was usually behind the scenes. And then later, actually, as a tour arranger, tour manager for my dad and other performers as well.
Very cool. It's so exciting. Your father, Leon, will go down, already probably is, famous in the history of magic as the world famous Leon Mandrake. I myself, years ago, I think it was in the 80s, I saw a CBC special. And CBC, for those of you not in Canada, it's a major TV station, or TV network rather. And I was mesmerized. Here was this, and I was already working as a professional magician for a number of years, but here was this beautiful, and I hope I'm not being monotonous. Every time I see you, Lon, I mention the dancing handkerchief, but that was the most animated, most it was like a real thing, like a person almost. This beautiful dancing handkerchief that your dad did, and he put him in this big glass jug. I'm calling the handkerchief a him. I think it was a she. I think she had a female name, and she'd fly out and balance on one of his rings, and it was just a thing to behold, because I'm a big fan of comics and fantasy and cartoons. I was also a professional cartoonist years ago. So that captured my imagination, was, wow, this thing has personality. And I'd seen, of course, the dancing handkerchief performed many times by many other great magicians throughout the world. But I have to tell you, with all due respect, your dad was my favorite performer of this illusion. And I forgot, your dad used to do the floating table. I don't think I saw that on video. I might have. But I actually saw Harry Anderson do the floating table, and that's what influenced me a little bit, because I love old things. I like 1800 period things and costumes, etc. And then I realized years later, when you reminded me, well, yeah, my dad used to do that, and all of this, and you were very kindly gave me tips on performing the, I call it the dancing table tilting, table tilting, because the history of that, and we're going to hopefully get into that in a few minutes, is kind of mysticism. It's fake, pseudo-psychic phenomena, if you will. The kind of thing that the great Houdini kind of tried to expose, but your dad made it magical. There is this incredible illusion, this magical looking table floating about the stage, and I'll never forget that years later when I actually did see that. I think I saw a video of it. Let's talk a little bit, since we're going down that road, about your education. You were a science teacher for many, many years until you retired.
Yes, for about, I taught science for about 35 years. And I got very involved in the professional development area of science teaching. As president of the BC Science Teachers Association, we'd bring in top scientists and for large conventions, and the idea was always to keep on top of everything new and to try to really stimulate our teachers to get interested in science, interested in puzzles and all that sort of thing, anything that would help with the teaching. So I had a very, very interesting career in teaching science. And of course, I started to add a little magic to it closer to the end of my career, just to stimulate the students, and sometimes as a reward, if you work very, very hard, well, actually, I'll give you a few puzzles on Friday, sort of magical puzzles, and I try to use a little magic in my science.
Awesome. A lot of people out there don't know, the magicians do, but the non-magicians don't, that magic is not only an art. I hope you'll agree with me on this. It's also a science. And apart from the obvious science experiments that look magical, that involve physics and other things, really magic uses a certain part of the brain, or maybe a couple of different parts of the brain, either in the creation process of a magic illusion or a magic trick, but also when people view the trick, their senses are fooled, and certain parts of their brain connect certain things that might not have even actually happened in the trick. And we as magicians, we kind of rely on that people inadvertently connect dots that aren't necessarily there. And so That excites me so much, the creative process of magic. Sometimes the actual secrets to magic illusions, I refuse to call them tricks, to magic illusions and effects, sometimes they're more clever than the effect itself. If you kind of pull back that curtain and look behind the scenes, it's like, holy cow, look what went into, look at the thinking. That still amazes my wife. We were talking about, I think we were watching Penn and Teller last night. I taped it, I recorded it. And one of the secrets to the effect that somebody did on the show was, I don't think I'll be giving away anything special. I don't think people out there, non-magicians, will understand. But memorization and pacing of a trick is so important, because I believe as well, besides memorizing the mechanics and and when to do a certain sleight, it's also a play. I believe that every magic illusion, hopefully, is broken down into about 3 sections: a beginning, middle, and end. And sometimes I find that lacking in today's quick magic tricks. They're very visual. And I'll never put down magic in any form unless it's exposure or really bad. But what is your take on the quickie kind of things we see on social media, such as Instagram or TikTok and whatnot? Are you happy that magic's there, or would you prefer a different kind of magic that's shown?
Um, I think I'm happy that magic is there, but I, I couldn't agree with you more about the mental stimulation. And I think some of the older magic where there was a story involved, or the magician became an actor. You mentioned the dancing handkerchief. Well, her name was Katie King, and my father actually became very, very attached to this dancing hanky, and would treat it as if it was a living entity when he was performing it. And I think this made a huge difference, because the audience that could buy in, I think they realized, of course, 99% would have realized that, what it was an act, but they got involved with it just like you would a story. And so I hope we never lose that aspect of magic, the idea of the entertainment, and take you out of yourself, away from your daily problems, and look at something that's wondrous and not easily explainable. And so I agree with you. Although, I think when I see a lot of the magic on television, that's kind of all of a sudden, wow, how did that happen? You get the same reaction. I mean, for my students, I found that David Blaine and Chris Angel had a tremendous influence on their sense of wonder. They would come to class and ask me all about it, and if I did something similar, they were just absolutely blown away. But they were looking for, as you say, it stimulates a different part of your brain. It makes you think outside the box, and I think it's really important. So I'm enjoying the magic I'm seeing today, and there's a lot of different programs, a lot of different styles, and I think magic has certainly changed. I would say we're in an era of specialists today, whereas the magician of the 1940s and 50s had to do a little bit of everything to be a performer that everyone was going to come to see. You know,
Absolutely.
so,
Absolutely. I agree with you 1,000% on all of that as well. To me, magic is wonderment, and at I don't want to really reveal my age, but we'll say I'm in my 60s. I still have this sense of wonder, and I believe it's thanks to magic on television and the great variety of entertainers, because you don't really know who's going to come up next, or how they're going to present themselves, how they're going to present the trick or the illusion. And I just love it all. It also stimulates my brain, stimulates my imagination to perhaps try to come up with a variation of that effect, or it may trigger something completely different. So it's very inspiring. I've always been inspired by magic. I'm so grateful for social media. And you spoke of influences in modern days, say the last 10, 20 years of David Blaine and Chris Angel. And a lot of magicians might not aesthetically like these guys, but they've inspired so many young magicians, so many aspiring magicians who I believe have gone on to being pros and creators of magic. So I notice that generationally we all have or have had different magicians to kind of inspire us. I can only remember in my early childhood, Magic Tom, who was a local Montreal magician. He was on TV 7 days a week in English and French. He was the first magician I ever saw. And Mark Wilson. I don't think the rest of Canada had cable then, but I hooked up the antenna on the roof, and somehow through snow I wanted to watch Superman and Mark Wilson's Magic Land of Alakazam. And to me, that was real magic. A part of me knew it wasn't real magic, but it still fascinated me. Like, how is that done? It's so neat. I'll never forget Nanny Darnell, Mark's assistant and wife, going into the sawing a lady, but it looked like a locomotive. It looked like a little train. That was fantastic. How original is that? So hopefully more and more kids and adults are being inspired. They're being influenced. They're being their creative aspect is being stimulated by magic. We're going to return with Leon Mandrake and continue our discussion on all things magical and perhaps a branch of magic called mentalism. So we'll see you in just a moment.
Producer and host of his specials on social media based on his magical books of the same name, Dr. Michael, Magic Mike Likey, is also a clinical hypnotherapist and doctor of theocentric psychology. Having performed more than 250 shows a year in the mid-80s and 90s, he also produced and starred in the world's longest regularly produced TV shows in Winnipeg, Canada for 9 years, and guested regularly on broadcast television and starred in A Medieval Feast for 10 years. Star of stage and television, Magic Mike Likey performs illusions large and small and will teach you the secrets of the magical arts, both in person and virtually. This is Magic Mike Likey.
And we're back with magician Leon Mandrake, who has kindly agreed to visit our show today. Leon, I want to talk a little bit about mentalism. I believe it's your specialty. I've always loved the we call it a blindfold act that you did with your wife Linda. And to me, as a magician, it's nothing new, but you bring a newness to it. I try to step out and watch magicians as if I'm watching them for the first time or as if I don't know anything about magic. And something exciting about you and Linda and seeing you guys live doing this amazing routine. For everyone out there, objects are selected randomly and they're named. I believe you wear a blindfold and Linda goes out and selects objects from the audience, and you, in most cases, successfully name the objects. Now, I didn't realize until I moved out here about 25 years ago that a lot of people take mentalism for the real thing. And I like to call it psychic entertainment or call it mentalism, in that we're not trying to pull the wool over people's eyes and pretend, oh, we're these great seers and we can read minds, and but magic presents incredible illusions of the mind. And if a person is, I'll use the word gullible enough, they'll believe that this person is really reading their mind or whatnot. And I know this from someone very close to me who saw the amazing Kreskin years ago in her youth, and she thought he was the real deal. And by the time I saw Kreskin, I was 14. I was already a lot into magic, and I knew a lot of the secrets and methodologies. We had a number of magic shops in Montreal, and I knew it wasn't real. So I was at a point where I was trying to figure out, as another magician, how Kreskin was doing his effects, and other people were believing he's the real thing. And How do you feel about this sort of thing?
Well, I feel mentalism is a type of magical entertainment, probably using a lot more psychology than the standard performances, which are optical illusions. Okay, um, but I feel it produces again a sense of wonder, but also it brings up what can we do with our imaginations? you know, do such things really exist? And this is an important part of thinking because you know um, many of us know the powers of positive thinking, and many of us have had experiences where we've thought of something and all of a sudden it seems to appear. Um, or we actually do seem to know what somebody else is thinking, and so I think it's great to stimulate that. But it is a form of magical entertainment. It's one of the branches. As I mentioned, my father said he would teach me anyone I was interested in learning in. The one area I was really interested in was the mentalism, the mind reading, and the uh, sort of prediction and the reading of people. So that was the area I had him teach me, and that's probably the major part of my performances, um, other than the science and magic connection.
And there is a great overlap, as you sort of stated a few minutes ago, of science and mentalism, the branch of magic called mentalism. And I forget the decade. I don't know if it was the 30s or 40s or even 50s. A Dr. Ryan conducted experiments at Duke University. This lab is still around. I did some research a couple of weeks ago, and they're still doing tests and experiments in extrasensory perception, what some people call ESP, what a lot of people call psychic phenomenon nowadays. And that fascinates me for the same reasons that you brought up, Lon, is that, well, how do we explain away certain things that have happened? So that excites me as a mystic, it excites me as a magician, it excites me as a student of psychology, and I will always love mentalism as well, and the creative process. The only thing I've noticed in recent years, and you and I have spoken about this, was there's a lot of, without giving things away, a lot of electronics involved in well, not a lot, but some electronics involved in some mentalism effects and demonstrations, if you will. And I find, and I haven't used, and I never will, electronics in mentalism, but I've used electronics in magic effects, and I can't trust them. Something goes wrong in rehearsal, always. Either I have to recharge something or it doesn't quite perform. Years ago, I bought a $1,200 illusion that my agent was promoting for me. And the darn thing, it died. It wasn't made to work in -40, and it wasn't made to work in 112 temperatures. And where I was living at the time, we had extremes. So that wasn't good. That's a prime example. So I'm still what you may call old school, because I believe anything that can be duplicated nowadays electronically, we have a non-electronic method as mentalists and magicians to accomplish the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you. I'm definitely old school because the performances I learned were almost before the days of electronics, and in fact they were. I mean, original, and so I find it's more of a challenge for myself and a thrill to do things without any electronic things whatsoever. Although I watched other people do them and they're very impressive, but it's just my own philosophy that if I do something, I want to do it without. I almost feel like I'm cheating them if I'm not using my real intellect to accomplish the effect.
Absolutely. And my wife said the same thing. Because obviously she's been my assistant on a number of levels, on and off stage, and working sound for me and doing all this. And she doesn't like it. She goes, well, he just did this trick. The machine, she calls it a machine or whatever, this device did it for him. What part did he play? And of course, it was his part, you know, his presentation is very important, and his words and his energy on stage is just as important. But, and I don't want to demean electronic devices as well, because they do have a place, and there's some effects. I'm sure there are some effects that can only be accomplished electronically. There's a brand new, no, I can't actually reveal this to the lay people. I could reveal it to magicians, not the methodology, but the actual effect, because it's a friend of mine, a Spanish fellow, who created this. But in some cases, there's no other way but, say, electronics that will duplicate a certain effect. Now, we can come close without electronics, and it's pure. This is my bias. It's pure. There's no worry about things going wrong. And I don't know, to me, it's cleaner. It's a lot less stress than carrying around some kind of device somewhere on me or out there, or relying on someone else. So I'm all about non-electronics for mentalism anyway, at this point in my life and career. I want to zip back a little bit to Dr. Ryan and Duke University, because I know you brought with you today, actually you're in your home, so you know it's nearby. You've got an effect, and I like to call them experiments in ESP. Some people call them experiments in psychic phenomena or whatever. And they are the designs that Dr. Ryan came up with. Popularly, people think, oh, playing cards are used. And perhaps they are. There's a red-black color separation test that I know you're familiar with, and a lot of magicians like to do. But I like what we call as magicians ESP cards. And do you feel prepared to try an experiment today, or?
Well, I'd be very happy to show you one. You know, the reason Ryan chose symbols is he thought that symbols might be easier to project than letters or say emotions, you know, at a distance. And so, you know, if you can see these, but these are some of the symbols. We have, you know, the circle and a plus wavy lines, star, you know, just a variety of symbols. And I've got, you know, the 5 symbols here, and I've also got another 5 symbols here. And the only difference is that they're on blue back and red back cards. Okay, so I'm just going to pull this down so you can see them. Okay, we have the 5 here, and we've got 5 here. Now, what I'm going to do is, you know, rather than just have you guess them, we're going to see if I can, or if we can have you match 2 of the cards. So, if, for example, you know, we have, you know, these 2 don't match. Okay. I'm going to go through it. We're going to see if will the cards match. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cards, and when I spell a word, like say it was magic, it would be M-A-G-I-C, and that would be the end of a word. But I'm going to have you call out switch at any time while I'm spelling, and I'll switch decks. So I have a blue deck, and of course I've got the red deck. So which would you like me to start with, the blue or the red?
Let's do the red.
The red. Okay, now I'm going to start to spell will. Now remember, you can say switch at any time, and I must switch decks.
Very good.
So W-I-L.
Switch.
And the last letter L. And I'm going to take these 2 cards and just put them aside. Okay. Now, which one do you want me to start with now?
Let's do the blue.
the blue, okay, will the. There you can say switch at any time. T, H,
Switch.
T. Well, a little late.
Okay.
We'll take this two. Okay.
Excellent.
Which one now?
Let's continue with the blue.
The blue, okay, will be cards. C, A,
Switch.
R, D,
Switch.
S. And we'll take these two and remove them. And now we're going to do match. Do you want me to go for the pink or the blue?
Let's do the red.
Red?
Yep.
Okay. Remember, switch at any time. You can go several times during the word.
Okay.
M, A,
Switch.
C, H. And we'll get rid of these two, leaving us with these two.
Very good.
Okay?
Yep.
See that, yes, they did that.
Whoa. Whoa. Right off the bat. Okay.
I don't know if Dr. Ryan would be overly impressed, but I think it's going to give you some thought there. And, of course, if you said switch anytime you felt like it,
Yep.
and we'll notice that actually
No way.
you should maybe look into
No way.
abilities, I guess, because
Wow.
you've got all of them.
Hokey smoke.
I love that. That's amazing, Lon. That is so cool. We're going to pause for a moment. We're going to come back and speak further with magician Leon Mandrake.
Enjoy Magic Mike Likey's animated cartoons, comic books, CDs, and DVDs available from Amazon. He's also the author of more than 45 self-help alternative wellness books, as well as instructional magic books, all available from Amazon. Published in International Magicians trade journals, Magic Mike Likey is a member of the International Brotherhood of Magicians and the Society of American Magicians.
And we're back with mentalist slash magician Leon Mandrake. Leon, that was amazing. We closed the last segment with an experiment in ESP and Dr. Ryan's ESP cards. And for those of you out there who are non-magicians, I don't want to call it a trick, it was an illusion. It didn't necessarily mean that I've got an extraordinary amount of ESP or Lon does, but as Kreskin used to say, I don't know if he still says that, everything that's accomplished is done through perfectly scientific means, scientific and natural means, I believe he said. And that's absolutely true, isn't it? It's there's no mysticism involved. There's no, I'm not going to roll my eyes back and come up with some amazing thing. I'm not going to start channeling, whoever and doing that. This is purely for demonstration purposes. So anybody watching this. I want to talk about this amazing book that your wife Linda has co-written with you. And it's about your dad, his times, and a lot more than that. It's chock full of pictures, and I love it.
Well, thank you. Actually, my wife wrote it up. All I supplied were basically the photos and some stories. And we thought, my dad lived such an interesting life, and it's forgotten so quickly. And we've got children and grandchildren, and we thought it'd be nice just to put something together. And then we found that it was very, very. Most magicians that have got it have really enjoyed it as well, because you're looking at the history and stories of a magician that went right from the 1920s up until the 1980s performing. And this is the book here, The Real Mandrake the Magician. And that's my father in the 1940s. And as you mentioned, it's chock full of photographs some very, very rare ones, performing in Hawaii, and uh, there's family stories, how he got his start, adventures, people he met, and so it's we're very, very proud of the book, and uh, it's for sale, I guess, on Amazon and so on, and also uh, if a magician or whatever to write to us, we could maybe deliver it from our home.
Awesome. If anyone out there is an historian of magic, every magician should have this in their library. This is one of several books I've found as a collector of magic, as a pseudo historian. I don't profess to be an expert on the history of magic. Far from it. I'm still learning. It's not just a history of your dad's show and his life and times. In essence, it's a history of magic in that time period from the 20s up until roughly the 50s and 60s. And part of that brings up a lot of memories for me because I was born in 56, and around close to 1960, my viewing of magic and that style of magic and the way magicians dressed was very much like your dad. It was very much the night attire. Magicians used to dress up a little bit. They still kind of do, especially in Vegas. But I love this book, and in a few minutes we'll mention Amazon, we'll mention your email address and your own website address as well, so people can contact you and order the book as well, because it's fantastic. I have two. I don't want to part with the other one, but it's going to be a treasured gift to someone else I know. Thus I will part with the other one. Because I love mentalism, it is my favorite branch of magic. I'm going to almost beg you, Lon, if you wish, can you share with us another experiment in ESP?
Sure, I'd love to. Um, what A lot of times, if we're going to do a little mind reading, we have to, have something concrete to for you to focus on. Um, Generally, in the show, if I'm doing the science world or a private home, I'll ask if they have any books, and I just happen to have a success book here. Okay, and what I'm going to have you do is uh, I'm going to go through it, and you can say stop at any time. You can change your mind, and we're going to see if we can find, you know, any word for you to focus on. So,
Stop.
right there.
Yep.
You can go to a different page if you like. All right. Can you see those words?
Yes. Just move back up again a little bit, and yes.
Moving
I've
around.
got one. I've got one in my mind. It's a
You've got one
long
in your
word.
mind already.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to picture it as if it's written
Okay.
in
Well,
white chalk on a blackboard, if I may.
we'll start off. Okay. Let's try the blackboard approach. I'm going to have you think of the first letter,
Okay.
and just think of the letter, and you see if we can project it to you. Okay. Um, okay. What letter were you thinking of?
D.
A D.
Yes.
It didn't do too well here. I've got the letter T.
Okay.
I guess if I was a magician, I might do this.
Exactly.
But I'm not going to do that. We're going to have to do it. We're going to try a different. I want you to picture the entire word now, or if you can see it in your mind or say it in your mind, but don't think of the letters. Just see what you can. Okay, this is quite a long one, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I've written down a word, and it's interesting. I think you picked the word that actually has something to do with yourself, because you're the type of person that you get an idea in your mind and you you bring it to fruition. You go through and you accomplish things. What was your word?
Determination.
Well, that's very good because that happens to be
Look
the
at
word I
that. Amazing, unbelievable. And I want to emphasize to our audience out there, both magicians and otherwise, that it was exactly the way you've seen it. Lon and I did not set up anything in any way, shape, or form. There was nothing worked out beforehand. I did have a perfectly free choice of where to say stop at what page. And certainly I picked one word by myself from between those two pages that I said stop at and had it firmly in my mind. And again, that's just so amazing, Lon. And really, isn't that what it's all about, is amazing our audiences, making them think a little bit?
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for joining us this day. How can people get in contact with you?
Email would be Leon at leonmandrake.com. Okay. I go by the name Lon, but Leon is my birth name. Leon at leonmandrake.com. And also the book Friesen Press printed it last year. And I think you can get it on Amazon or eBay. It's there as well. Okay.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much for joining us this day, Lon. Muchly appreciated. Will you join us again sometime in the future?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
And we'd love to have you again. We could speak for hours. I know we can, and hopefully our audiences aren't bored by our chit chat. I think we've stimulated a few brains this day.
Thank you so much for joining me on today's show.
See you all very soon.